When I devour a whole pizza on my own in a hotel room after midnight and spend the next morning throwing up, I need to sort my life out. But when Michael Jordan does it, he gets praised. I'm not sure what's more impressive, Jordan's desire to win at all costs or Jordan's commitment to the dirt stash. And what do Scott Burrow and Chris Humphries have in common? They both sold their souls for a ring. All Jordan everything, this is our complete review of The Last Dance. Well, there you have it. 5 weeks down, 10 hours down, and pretty much every piece of information you could possibly need about Michael Jordan's life.
And I love it. It was a great 10 hours, 5 days, 10 hours. It was great. I enjoyed it quite a bit. What about you? How do you feel about it?
For a sports-starved world, it was kind of a perfect thing to come out, and it was great in and of itself in that aspect, because we needed something to fill that gap in that time. On the documentary itself, I enjoyed pieces of it for sure, but one thing that kind of, I wouldn't be able to go back and rewatch it, or I probably wouldn't have been able to watch all 10 hours of it if it was coming out, when regular other stuff was going on, just because of how repetitive a lot of it was. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of it, they have the interviews with the players, right? And they jump over to them, and the players all say the exact same thing every time about Jordan, right? And it's I get that you're trying to drive home the point that they fear Jordan, or that they think Jordan is so much better than them, or that they too, even as players, idolize Jordan, which is great, but can't you do that in a montage or something? Do we need to have 10 hours of interviews of people going, oh, everyone was scared of Jordan, but I wasn't, and then Jordan going, he didn't cause any problems for me.
Yeah, that happened. Or the classic, they looked at Jordan wrong, and then he decided to use that as motivation to win the game. There's a lot of that too, right? They just be like, hey, nice game, Jordan. What?
Yeah, what did you say to me? Don't talk shit to me.
Right.
Yeah,
pretty much that.
Now, what's more impressive, though? Jordan's ability to hold a grudge or Phil Jackson's ability to hold a grudge? Because we see Jordan's come up on the court, but Phil Jackson basically told his owner he wasn't going to re-sign just to spite the GM because he hated him and knew he would lose Michael Jordan if he did.
Yeah.
That's honestly, some pretty high level,
And knowing the history now that Phil Jackson goes on to win a couple more rings, not just a couple, but you know what I mean. And then,
but he also in a way pushed the best player of all time into an early retirement.
That's true. It's crazy. Michael Jordan retired twice. Well, 3 times.
3 times, yeah.
Times in total, but
and people wish it was twice. Most people wish it was twice.
Yeah. Right, but you have to come back. It's kind of like Tom Brady. Do you really have to go play for the Bucks? Can you retire? But we'll see.
At least Tom Brady didn't retire and then come back to play for another team, though. Because Jordan retiring from the Bulls and then coming back to play for that terrible Wizards team, right? If it was a good team, maybe. But you can't get that Wizards era Jordan out of your head when you think about him too, and it's just it's like when you have a family dog and the dog starts to get really old and it doesn't want to play catch anymore or anything, and you're just like, oh, that's kind of sad. That's what it was like watching Jordan play for the Wizards.
Yeah, I kind of wish he didn't play for the Wizards as well, but what can you do? If you love the sport, you just want to keep coming back, right? It's, they're not, which is kind of strange because it always seemed like Jordan hated the stress of being the best player, but then I guess in a sort of way he loved it because he kept coming back. So I don't know what he was trying to show us. He says one thing, but his actions lead to another thing.
I still invest in the idea that he got burnt out both times that he went to retire, just because he had to do so much all the time on those teams, right? And
that's true.
I don't know. I feel like that gets to you, that adds up, especially when you take it as seriously as Jordan did, right? A caretaker, polishes his locker a little bit too much, and all of a sudden he's got to go out and steal Detlef Schrempf's soul in a playoff game because of that. Yeah, people will say, it's impressive that he had this drive to win and all that, but that's got to get heavy on you, man. Just holding a grudge against every little thing that happens like that.
Yeah. Just finding the littlest forms to find motivation, right? So yeah, that is mentally
And
taxing for
and
sure.
and one thing too is we see so many times throughout The Last Dance, throughout the 10 hours of this documentary, that I'm going to keep saying that because I can't believe it's a 10-hour documentary technically on one season. I mean, yeah, we go back in time and see all the other seasons in that too, but it's the basis of it is one season, and we went 10 episodes of an hour each on them. It's pretty crazy. But one thing we see, so many times throughout it is this Jordan's desire to win and how he pushes everybody all the time, and he pushes this extra level and comes in and wins. But you got to think too. I mean, yeah, he won a lot more than he lost, but he's probably doing those exact same things when they're losing. Right? Yeah, we're showing the winning stuff, but he's probably also, there's probably plenty of times too where he went to the locker room pissed off, came back out and still didn't have it in the second half, right?
Yeah.
So, keep in mind when we see all these people on Twitter saying, oh, this Jordan's desire to win always paid off and all this stuff. You're watching a documentary about this person that needed this person's approval in order to be made.
Yeah,
right?
It was pretty much produced by him and semi-produced, so.
Yeah, everything's going to be skewed towards his, making him look better, his point of view, which is why I was confused when beforehand he said that he thought that this was going to make him look worse. I mean, yeah, he looked like a dick, but I mean, who didn't know Michael Jordan was a dick?
Yeah, I mean, everybody knew most play he was a dick, right? It's not for that competitive drive, you see it in like almost every kid hero, every player that's considered a GOAT, right? They always swearing in the sidelines, I bring it back to Brady, how he was swearing in the sidelines and people would get pissed off about that, or like how Ronaldo's always crying and stuff like that. It's, those kind of players, we don't understand it, I guess, because we don't have that same desire to always win and be the best of our very best. So he kind of seems like he's coming off as a dick, even though.
I get it though. When you put it on a screen like that, it's inspiring, right? Like it gives you that feeling in your gut and that, right? But we're basically watching this on fast forward, living through it. If you're Scott Burrell, it's probably wasn't that great to live through.
Yeah.
Right? Like, right. Yeah, you got a ring, but like, was it really worth it?
Yeah, just have a guy constantly just talk crap to you. It seemed like every second sentence Jordan would just be bad mouthing Scott Burrell the entire time, right?
Man, that was like, it was like the older brother, little brother when you're like 10, but towards Scott Burrell, and just aggressively make, and you know what? To Scott Burrell's credit, he never broke. He never broke. The whole thing, every time Jordan would come at him with something where you could tell Jordan was clearly being serious. Like Jordan wasn't kidding around. And he would say these things to Scott Burrell all the time, and Burrell would just take it with a straight face. He'd come back with a one-liner or a bad joke or something. Like he was kind of like the dad joke guy of the locker room,
Yeah, so good on him. He had freaking nerves of steel to just handle that.
To put up with that. And then you saw too at the end after they won, and he was talking about oh no, Jordan said, I never want to see your face again after this, or whatever it was, or that direct quote was. And then Scott Burrell is like, oh no, I'm coming back and you're coming back too. And I'm like, man, this guy, he takes it like a champ throughout this whole thing. Honestly, I think Scott Burrell might be my biggest winner of the Last
MVP.
Dance documentary. Yeah, like of all the people that you came into this, I think he's the guy who overall the world's opinion of him raised the most.
Yeah. Speaking of opinions being raised or lowered, how do you feel? So Scottie Pippen is very upset with Jordan on how he was portrayed in the Last Dance.
Scottie Pippen though strikes me as the type of person that I don't know, gets offended like that kind of easily. But like it does, but it's not like he doesn't hold it, Like he gets a little bit offended by it a little easily. Like I've seen him do things before where he'll get a little bit offended by something, but then he'll come back afterwards and be fine again a little later. So it seems like he takes it to heart, but he brushes it off quickly too. I don't know if that makes sense.
Who knows, right? It's yeah, he seems like now that you think about it, and watching The Last Dance, that makes a lot of sense that you say that. And just me reading up on like his past beefs and everything like that, it's with Charles Barkley.
And you know what? I
It
think
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that team needed that, right? Because you have Jordan on the one hand being a dick, right? And Scotty's kind of there to balance it out, you know? Like, Jordan's a dick to them, and then Scotty will come over and be like, hey, it's all right, man. Perk up.
Yeah.
You'll
Right.
do better next time, right? Like, you got the good cop, bad cop going on, right?
Yeah. And I thought he was portrayed pretty well. Like, yeah, there was some negative things, but no one was shown, and even Jordan was shown in some negative lights a little bit as well, right? So,
Yeah.
wasn't all sunshine and rainbows in the team, right? And you have to have some form of
Overall, do you think your opinion of Scottie Pippen raised or lowered because of this?
well, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't have much of an opinion of Scottie Pippen. I'm like, oh yeah, he was really good. So mine raised for him because I didn't know what he was going through, especially that I learned that he was like how underpaid he was during those championship years. That was just like that really raised the respect for me, you know? So like I understand where he was coming from and why he was upset come 98.
Yeah, I mean, the thing too is with Pippen is that coming into it, I think there was this narrative that Pippen was soft, you know, and it was never really a great narrative. We saw Pippen play; he was one of the toughest nosed defenders we've ever seen, and that. But there's those little incidents that peek out, you know, like the refusing to take the final shot in the playoffs with the year Jordan missed. And yeah, the sitting out with the injury at the beginning of the season. I don't blame him as much for that one, because of what you just mentioned, the contract stuff and that. But I think the narrative of him being soft was kind of muted a little bit, at least by this, because we saw what he went through in that final season and that final playoff series, and we saw the pain he was in, laboring through that game, that clinching finals game against the Jazz, where he went down right away. That was the first 2 minutes of the game. He has a dunk and he goes down, and you can see he gets up and right away his face is like he's not right. You know?
Yeah, he's just like, I'm done.
Like if you've ever had a back injury, no matter how minor or how major before in your life, it is the hardest thing to not trigger. You know, like every little movement you do goes through your back in some way, right? Like you can be sitting there typing on your computer and you have a back injury and you're uncomfortable, right? Like back injuries are tough to get through, and he went through that whole game, scored a few points near the end there with those little baby hooks in the middle when they started going to him in the middle of the lane and that at the end of that game. And like he said, acted like a decoy through a lot of the game too, and really pointed out flaws in the Utah Jazz, and that like you've got a guy out there who's basically, you know, a scarecrow. Like he's this tattered form of himself, and it's clearly obvious the dude's clearly laboring, yet they don't seem to make any adjustments to their game plan because of it. You know, they just keep rolling out the same lineups, and you'll see, you know, nobody's picking on Scotty on offense, right? Nobody's trying to force the switch onto Scotty on defense and that, right? I don't know. It seems like you watch this game, like even from just the highlights they put in The Last Dance, you watch that game and it's kind of like the Bulls won this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
Right, like it had to, like the Utah Jazz had to completely mismanage this game in order to lose that series. It's impressive.
Yeah, it's insane, right? And then, yeah, if they won that game, I don't think they're win. I think they win it all, because
oh yeah,
Scotty can't. Scotty's not playing the next game for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they had multiple chances really to clinch up that series, and I think a lot of why it didn't happen was their refusal to adjust the game plan at all, you know? Like their game plan was always pick and roll, Karl Malone and Scotty, get Scotty down low, kick it into Scotty, just like the final play that ended up with the turnover and the historic final 40 seconds by Jordan where he scores the game-winning shot. That play where he gets the ball down low like that was their bread and butter. They run that almost every time down the court, that or a screen and roll with Malone and Stockton, right? And the idea, of course, every time is Malone would either, take Rodman down and score the basket, or he'd whip it out to Hornacek for a quick three, or to Stockton at the top of the key, right? But every time, like it was like they had three plays they ran them really, really well. I mean, that's what they're known for, Karl Malone and Stockton, right? It's the pick and roll game, the two-man game. But you gotta at some point be like, this team is tattered. This team is tired. Jordan's tired. Jordan's laboring. Scotty's broken. He's out there laboring. Rodman's on his last legs as a basketball player. Like, this is his final, effort of, showing he can, like he was great in the series, but it was the last time in his career that he was that Rodman,
Yeah.
And, Harper's getting older. That was the time to beat them, and it all lined up for the Jazz to beat them, and somehow the Jazz completely botched it.
Yeah, it just goes to show you, right? It's what forms some championship teams. If you don't adjust, you need a coach to know and adjust accordingly, right? Like some teams, they have the play, and then Jordan had to counter to it because he knew the play too, right? And then this time, though, like at that last play, because that's when you're most comfortable and you're most confident, right? It's a little bit of a chess game, you let them think that they have the confidence, and at the last second when things are really tight and they're concentrated on totally trying to score, Jordan comes up with the steal, and the rest is history. He pushed the guy off and then got a score. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Do you think it was a push?
It was definitely a push. Whether the push mattered or not is an argument to be had, right? Like it was a push. He clearly pushed him. The guy's momentum was moving in that direction. Yes, but not at that much. He kind of pushed him in a way that made him turn a little bit, right? Like his body twisted a little bit, and that's much harder to recover from than if you were just moving in the direction. That being said, I think it was over the second he hit him with the crossover anyway. I don't think he wasn't recovering. Byron Russell wasn't making up 4 feet of ground to get up and contest that shot. And even if he did contest it, it's Michael Jordan, right? That's his bread and butter shot, right? Even if you have the best player in the world defending him there, that's going down probably 60% of the time, right?
Yeah.
So with the 4 feet of space and Byron Russell having to close out, I don't know if he would have been able to impact the shot anyway.
Yeah, well, Byron Russell swears up and down that he would have been able to stop that shot.
That being said, I'd be willing to bet too in today's NBA the steal from Karl Malone might have been called a foul, right, on the other end where Jordan knocked the ball out there, right? In today's NBA, with how loose they are with the calls and the post and that.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So
that's crazy.
What about Jordan then? Your opinion of Jordan, has that been altered at all because of this, to get better, to get worse?
Kind of pretty much. I guess it got a little better, but then I kept thinking to myself, I'm like, wait, this is produced by him, so I can't be completely sold. But it kind of validated what I already knew, right? So I guess it kind of increased a little bit. I knew how competitive he was. I knew he was an asshole to his teammates. I knew he made Space Jam, so, and I knew that he was getting bullied by the Detroit Bad Boys until he decided to bulk up, and then Pippen came, and then they started to take over the league, right? So it pretty much confirmed everything, but it was just nice to watch, I guess, some sports and seeing, Jordan dominate.
Yeah, and I think there's a large contingent of basketball fans that haven't actually seen Jordan play, and this kind of helped with, right? Like, yeah, the argument on LeBron versus Jordan, it's a stupid argument, and it's every day with this argument propelled by, ESPN and all them. But I mean, I get it. They have to, right? This is what gets them clicks and stuff, right? This is how they make their livelihood. But it's a bad comparison. They're not two types of players you can compare to. You want to compare LeBron to someone, compare him to Magic, right? Like but I think that a lot of the people that argue that the Jordan versus LeBron debate, and for I'm gonna sound a little pretentious here, but for the most part, the people that are on the LeBron side, I have a strong hunch have never watched an actual Jordan game, right? Or seen any of the things that Jordan has done, right? That's the thing, and I think it didn't really affect my opinion of Jordan, but I feel like overall it might have flipped more people than it turned in favor of the MJ is the GOAT debate.
Yeah, I can see that happening. But
it's to be expected, like you said. It's propaganda, basically, right? Like it was.
Yeah.
But it's like it's funny because I hear a lot of people saying that it's bad to call it a documentary because of that, and it's like, I mean, every documentary is from someone's perspective, right? And especially if it's a documentary about someone who's alive, right? Like it's one thing if it's a documentary about Julius Caesar, right? The dude's been dead for forever, right? Like there's like nothing new is coming out. There's not it's a lot more difficult to make a documentary from a neutral point of view when the guy it's about is still alive, right? And not only that, but owns the footage, right? Like it's still, in my opinion, qualifies as a documentary. Yeah, it's it's biopic-ish in that it pushes, one end of the debate and not the other one. Really. A little bit, you had to throw a little bit of anti-Jordan stuff in there too, but I don't think Jordan needed to be concerned about it like he was beforehand, about this altering people's opinions of him for the worse or any of that stuff, right? If anything, I think that the people who it hurts the most are, Karl Malone, Salt Lake City pizza joints. Probably took a pretty big hit.
Yeah, honestly, I agree with you. Yeah, the people are saying it shouldn't be a documentary, but it's not like these things didn't happen. It's pretty much it shows your opinion, and obviously they're gonna play like they're not gonna show anything bad that anybody said, but at the same time, it's everything that's happened, and it's most of the stuff that's happened is what we already knew, right? Unless you never heard of Jordan or never watched Jordan before, but like that's very rare, right? I don't know.
Yeah,
he's probably one of the top sports icons, that's been
if not the top.
Yeah,
I mean it's probably Muhammad Ali and then him, like.
Yeah, right. He's like a worldwide phenomenon. So, I don't think anything like that they said was totally inactive. Maybe like the Jordan not letting Isaiah on the team. Maybe there's a little bit more behind that we. Something that's.
But I mean, we knew Jordan hold a grudge. Like that's the kind of stuff I wish they went deeper into.
Yeah.
Because like we already know the baseline stuff of what happened, right? The reason we really wanted to tune into the documentary was to see some of the behind the scenes stuff, right? And the more, get a better answer on some of these questions we've had for a long time. I think we did get some on some things, but I think a lot less than what people wanted. And I think that's what's disappointing people is they're just kind of like, they already knew all this stuff about Jordan. If Jordan was this god, why bother making this about him already, right?
Yeah.
Right. Sorry?
Yeah, right. And one thing I do want to mention that actually changed my opinion was, remember back in arguments, people would always argue like, oh, back in the 90s, players hated each other. They were never friends. They just wanted to crush each other and stuff like that. And then watching this docu, it made me realize, I'm like, a lot of the players were real tight, right? They had that one little like, pop-up center around Space Jam where all the NBA stars would all play together. You just see Malone and Stockton sitting in the back after they just lost a game, and then Jordan just gives them props. Or Larry Bird and Jordan were always golfing together, and like even opposing coaches. So like everyone was all pretty tight. So I don't know where this narrative that everybody hate each other. Maybe on the court, yes, but off the court they were.
I think there was
pretty chummy.
It was a different era of competition in that they were able to separate what they were like on the court from what they were like off the court, right? On the court, they hated each other. Off the court, not so much. That being said, I do think grudges held a little more than they do today. That might be because of the lack of social media too. Whereas, today, if someone has a grudge, you hear about it on social media,
they start
it
tweeting.
gets driven to death, and then they become friends all of a sudden, and everyone's all buddy again, right? But there wasn't that cycle back then, right? Because not only was there no social media, but I don't think the players were as invested in developing their own personal brands as they are today.
Yeah.
And today it's kind of like you don't want to come off as that troublemaker, because, there's endorsement deals that come with being able to sell you, there's all that other stuff that comes into it that probably wasn't as big of a deal back in the 90s and that, right? Plus the oversaturation where everyone's always watching you, right, nowadays.
Yeah.
But I think also with Jordan specifically, I think a lot of ways Jordan kind of did take it personal and hold those grudges off the court. But I also think that he had this level of respect for certain players, like Charles Barkley. He had a level of respect for someone like Karl Malone and John Stockton. He had this respect for that he was able to, and especially Larry Bird, of course, too. He had this level of respect where he was able to put aside that grudge just because he respected the person so much, right? But that competitive aspect was always there. And I think Jordan might be the one exception to that rule of being able to separate the court from off the court.
Yeah, as we see, Isaiah Thomas, Exhibit A.
I was surprised that Jordan was able to let himself say that he thinks Isaiah Thomas is the second best point guard of all time.
Yeah, that's shocking.
That is something I never thought I'd hear Jordan say in my life. I never thought I'd hear Michael Jordan pay Isaiah Thomas that kind of a compliment.
Yeah. It's funny because Isaiah Thomas never had. I remember Isaiah Thomas listed his top 5 and he didn't have Jordan in it, and everyone was really shocked. So one of them, so I thought Jordan would return the favor and say he's not second best point guard, but who knows?
I hate all these top 5s that keep coming out now. Of course, quarantine time, everyone's making lists, right?
Yeah.
But these top 5s of the greatest players of all time, because at this point, everyone that's putting out these lists is only doing it for shock value. Right?
Yeah.
They're not gonna publish a list from one person that says Michael Jordan 1, LeBron 2, Kareem 3, Magic 4, Russell 5, right? It's a boring list. Nobody's gonna argue with that. Everyone's gonna be like, yeah, no, that's pretty good, right? Like it's. Yeah. They're not going to put that list out there, right? So you see Paul Pierce leaving LeBron off of his list and Isaiah Thomas leaving Jordan off of his list and that, and they're just doing it because they know you're going to disagree with it, and they know you're going to comment about it, and that keeps them in the news cycle.
The clicks, and yeah,
exactly.
I remember that.
Nobody actually believes that LeBron James isn't a top 5 all-time player, just like nobody actually believes Michael Jordan isn't a top 5 all-time player, right? Yeah. Especially Isaiah Thomas. You played against him. You know he's a top 5 all-time player, right?
Yeah, you had specific rules for him. Right, so but just to have like shock value and generate some clicks, and then we the people eat it up like it's hot cakes. It's just what can you do though? Sorry.
We talked Jordan, we talked Pippen. The other one is obviously Rodman. And does anyone do you also get the feeling that throughout watching The Last Dance and that whenever you look at Rodman's face through most of this, it just seemed like he was tired of his own shit. Like he was as tired of Dennis Rodman as we were tired of Dennis Rodman. Like it just looked like the dude checked out and was a blank slate and a blank stare half the time. Like you look at the wrestling thing, the WCW thing, and his face is just deadpan. There's nothing. And then every time they'd show him in the interviews, he'd always say the same thing. I'm Dennis Rodman. I do as Dennis Rodman's gonna do.
Yeah, just do me.
Yeah, I know.
If Jordan does him.
We know. You've been saying that for fucking 20 years, right? Give me something else.
The funniest thing I'd noticed is that, the pants that he wore to WWE were the same pants that he was working out in. If you look at the in his workout videos where he's just working out. Like he just wore the same pajama pants everywhere.
I don't want to be
I can't believe
too.
it on
I don't want to be
TV.
too insulting here, but do you ever get the feeling watching this and watching Rodman in that Dennis Rodman probably smells bad?
Maybe. No.
Like, it's usually looking at him, I'm like, that guy doesn't seem like the most hygienic guy around.
Yeah, it's and it's funny because like how much money he makes, but he still just wears the same pants. And I was like, oh, he's one of those people that wore pajama pants out in public. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. So that's why I noticed that.
Yeah. But I mean, let's be real. If we're going to judge them on fashion, 90s basketball players probably, they're going to take a pretty big hit there, I don't think Jordan ever wore a piece of clothing that fit him, right?
Yeah.
It's weird. Okay. So Jordan seemed to always, no matter what, have his clothes be super baggy and like 3 sizes too big, right? Jordan is 6'6", 230, 220, right? Like, where is he finding these clothes that are that baggy? Is he getting clothes custom made specifically to be baggy?
The things I couldn't stand in the 90s is those big oversized suits that he would wear.
Oh my God.
What is...
and the fat tie that's like,
Yeah.
It's like 6 inches wide at the bottom and it's not even going down far enough to make sense.
It was just, I just couldn't stop. Like, oh my goodness, it just reminds me of like a Shabba Ranks music video. Just him in his gigantic suits.
Everyone in the 90s dressed like Donald Trump. Like, it's stupid fat ties, suits that don't fit, baggy clothes. Like, but they did it because they thought it was popular. He does it because he's an obese potato. Like, there's different reasonings. So who was your biggest winner then of the Last Dance, do you think? Like, who came out of this looking the best?
Who came out looking the best? That's a good question. I think I'm going to say definitely not Jerry. It might probably be, honestly, if I'm gonna be lazy, but I think it might be. I'm saying either Jordan or Pippen, because I didn't know. For me personally, I didn't know as much as I did about Pippen. I always knew about Jordan, but I was just like, oh yeah, he's just the number 2 man, but he was a great number 2 man. But I didn't know all the sacrifices that Pippen made. Plus, like your comment about how I didn't even know that he had the narrative of him being a soft player, and then you see what he went through in those finals games and those injuries, and it makes a lot more sense, right? So, actually, I'm going to switch it to Pippen. Yeah, it's Pippen. I talked myself into it.
Pippen's a good Pippen's probably my number 2 that I'd say biggest winner from this, because yeah, you're right. Pippen, comes out as looking pretty good overall. Like I don't think if you knew Pippen, it really changed your opinion of him, but I think a lot of people that had the misconception of Pippen's value to that team, might have it might have skewed them and made him look like a bigger winner to them. Of course, the personality thing of him always being cool and confident and that on all those interviews, he's always just this cool guy. He doesn't overreact about anything. Nothing goes overboard, and I think that helps too. That makes him a bit of a winner too. Man. Yeah, he's got a badass voice. If I had
right?
Pippen's voice, man, I wish my inner monologue was in Pippen's voice. Like he just. But yeah, it's aside from looking like an Easter Island Ted, he's got it all going for him there.
I just took that in. I didn't even realize that now he's gonna have a grudge against you if he ever hears this.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Jordan's the one who holds the grudge, right? Pippen will let it slide. There's 0% chance Pippen overhears us anyway. So, yeah, I think Pippen was a big winner coming out of it. It showed his importance to that team, and despite his numbers, his numbers were good, right? But they weren't as good as Pippen was as a player, Like, he sacrificed just like everyone else did to play with Jordan, right? You look at Ron Harper's numbers. Ron Harper sacrificed, a multi-time All-Star career to play alongside Michael Jordan, right? everyone in a way sacrificed to be on that team and to be with Jordan, and that's what makes them such a good team, is that they all sacrificed for each other to make each other great, right? And Pippen, he was the number 2 guy on those teams, but he would have been a number 1 guy on a lot of other teams that were out there, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So he, he bit the bullet and he went out there before it was super popular to do so. If you knew you could be a number 1 guy, right? Like nowadays, everyone's just teaming up with each other, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it did definitely, was a positive for Scottie Pippen. For me, I said it a little earlier. I think the biggest winner is Scott Burrell from this, just because nobody knew who Scott Burrell was before this coming into it, right? Now everybody knows who Scott Burrell is. He's the second most popular GIF out there is a Scott Burrell GIF, and that's following up the Jordan security guard ones.
Yeah. You know what? That's hilarious because you're definitely right on that. Scott Burrell, I can see why people say he's the biggest winner. It's that guy, man. I can't believe the abuse that he took. Probably could have went to the police or something from the.
Yeah, it was like legit assault. Like he was. Yeah, he had. Oh, yeah. I could talk all day about how much my respect for Scott Burrell increased this docu-series. It seems weird even to call it a documentary just because of how freaking long it is.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. I don't know if I'd watch this if I had other things to watch. Well, I still have stuff to watch, but I kind of still watch this.
It's just kind of repetitive, is what I find about it. But you know what? It is what we needed at this time. And I get that they kind of had to rush out the last few episodes too, because this was supposed to be released much later, right? Mm-hmm. And then they pushed it ahead because of the COVID-19 stuff, right?
Oh, we're gonna get good numbers.
So, well, they wanted something to put on the network too, right? ESPN's like, holy crap, what are we gonna fill time with, right?
Yeah.
So they wanted that to go up there as well. So, and they were biting at that vintage apple anyway, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like it makes sense, it was needed. I get that, and it was fun. It just, man, it was repetitive. What about losers? Like, who do you think lost the most from this whole thing?
Lost the most? Well, in this day and age with Twitter, I think Isaiah Thomas is one of them, because people are very upset with Isaiah Thomas because of all the Jordan things that were going on and being said, which is, I don't really know what he said in that tweet in the Last Dance that made people super upset, but then they were upset.
It was more the deep dive into the walking off without shaking hands incident, right?
Yeah.
The biggest issue with it was the fact that he said, oh, the Celtics didn't do it the year before. But if you go back and look at the year before, the Celtics were being rushed off the court because fans were rushing the court at the end of the game, right?
Yeah.
Like, and even still, they came up to each other, and like you see Larry Bird and IT come up to each other and like nod at each other and that before they get pulled away and stuff, right, at the end of that series anyway. So I think the biggest issue was him using that as his reasoning, saying, oh, people didn't do that then. They did. You're using one series as an example, and you go back the year before when they played the Celtics and they shook hands and that, right? Like it might not have been the year before. It might have been before that. I don't know. But yeah, like that's the thing that kind of pissed people off, is that he blatantly stood up there and lied about something that there's video footage of. Not only that, but it was kind of a pussy move to pin the blame on Bill Laimbeer. As he said, it was Bill Laimbeer's idea as we went to the sideline to get us all to come together, and not taking any of that blame for himself when he was the undisputed leader of that team.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much Isaiah. You just explained why Isaiah Thomas is the loser. So for that, another one, this is kind of easy, but I'd say Jerry Krause, because I don't think people would look at the fine details. Like, even if what he did was he broke up the Bulls, he still did build most of those teams.
Spoiler alert.
Oh yeah, spoiler alert. Yeah, we got into it real deep, but we spoiler alert for history for the NBA. But yeah, so at the end he kind of started with the breaking up of the Bulls, right? But at the end of the day, you know, we kind of see the Bulls haven't really been that relevant since.
It's so surreal to go back and watch the footage of that 98 Bulls championship parade again that they were showing. Everyone knew it was over, and like they were pandering to the fact that it was over, and the crowd's out there cheering and everything still. It's such a weird scene to me.
Yeah.
It was a different time, I guess, but it's something like that happening today. Man, all those people out there cheering, they'd have been booing the whole time and everything.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. And it's the other surreal thing is watching this whole documentary of all these 10 hours, and you know what's going to happen, right? But for some reason, there's this thing built up inside of you that's like, maybe it's going to be different this time. Maybe they won't break up the Bulls this time.
Maybe it's an alternate reality.
No, they still break up the Bulls at the end. It's still it. It's still over. It's such a surreal thing to think of. On my end, for the biggest loser throughout this whole thing, you hit it with Jerry Krause a little bit, but I think Phil Jackson actually kind of lost a lot from this too, because I don't think a lot of people remember, time heals all wounds, right? So I don't think a lot of people remember that Phil Jackson was an abrupt kind of guy, right? And at the end of it, we see where Phil says that Reinsdorf came to him and said, I'll bring you back for another year no matter what Krause says, right? And Phil Jackson's response was, Jerry wouldn't like that, and so I didn't do it, and I knew Jordan wouldn't come back if I didn't, right? So he broke up the best team ever assembled and cost them the best player of all time just because he didn't like Jerry Krause.
You can take it that context too, right? Because who knows, maybe Phil Jackson carries the biggest grudge, and he's the guy that's all about zen and be all calm and let it go. But this guy didn't seem to let it go with Jerry Krause, right? So that's actually a very valid statement she said, right? So like I said, people say one thing and actions lead to another.
The other thing too is, do you think Jordan still hates Tony Kukoc?
I don't think so. You thought he hated him?
I feel like he might still hate him. I mean, we all know how much Jordan can hold a grudge. We all know how much he held a grudge originally with that. And when the team broke up, who was the one guy of their main rotation that was still on the team the next year? Tony Kukoc. The only one that stuck with the team afterwards and that. And Kukoc is, when he came in the year Jordan went to baseball, right? So I don't know, and the lack of much focus on him beyond that one episode at all, right? And now I said beforehand, devoting an entire episode to Tony Kukoc is a little weird, but not mentioning him at all other than that episode. They didn't even show any footage of him, and they didn't do a whole lot of credit with him because he was a good player on those teams. He was probably the fourth or fifth best player on those teams, depending on how you rank Ron Harper, right? So, but yet Steve Kerr got way more camera time.
Yeah, I thought that was strange because I was like, I thought he was like a role player on this, and then
yeah, I mean, he was an insanely good shooter. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. The thing is, I think the reason that Kerr got as much screen time as he did is because of the current Warriors, right? Might as well capitalize on that pull too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had the Warriors shirt on too, right? So, look at this guy.
The popularity of that helps boost this even more, right?
Yeah, look how successful he was with the Bulls, and now he's on the Warriors, and look how successful he is with the Warriors. It's like, it's the Jordan effect, isn't it? It's because he played with Jordan. Maybe that's what they're trying to show or something. Who knows? Maybe I'm just grasping at straws here or trying to make things stick. But it was kind of strange that they focused on Steve Kerr. Like, they had a huge background, and there's stuff that I didn't even know about Steve Kerr. Like, what happened with his father, that was insane. I was like, had no idea. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and they mentioned too, did you ever talk to Jordan about it? And that goes to show again what we were saying about Jordan being as hard as he is that he said, no, we never talked about our fathers, right?
Yeah.
And it shows even too in the documentary just how important Jordan's father was to him too. So
Yeah.
it pads even more just how much that hit was to Michael Jordan, to the point where everyone was saying before that he left basketball because there was this conspiracy about the gambling stuff and that David Stern was going to suspend him, and that, first off, why would you suspend someone for a season and a half so that they can come back for the playoffs or whatever, right? Or that David Stern wanted the Knicks to be good, so he wanted Jordan out of the league. And why? He's your biggest draw no matter what. Why do you, if you're trying to build a success, you're not going to kick your best draw out of your league or whatever, right? But and I think all of that stuff kind of gets also kind of pushed even further into the back corner when you see this and how important Jordan's father was to him and that, and you're like, okay, yeah, maybe that, was enough of a hit to make him not want to play basketball anymore. Because he said it when he came back, why he didn't want to wear number 23 is because he didn't feel like he should wear it with his dad not there to watch him, right? Of course, we all know what happened when he put it back on, and the rest is history. But it kind of deflates the argument of the people thinking that there was some conspiracy suspension thing going on with Jordan.
Yeah, I don't know how that conspiracy never made sense to me, but a lot of conspiracy theories don't make total sense to me, right? Sorry, conspiracy theorists out there, but yeah, so they're always,
I have one conspiracy theory for you.
Sure.
It turns out the conspiracy theorists were right with coronavirus. It wasn't caused by bats at all. We just all ate a bad pizza in Salt Lake City in 1998. So that's
100%. I've never been there, but I definitely ate there. It's the Pizzagate.
Pizzagate. I'm waiting for the 30 for 30 on the pizza delivery crew from that night. We all know the longer this quarantine goes on, you never know. They're going to be going digging into the attics there. Pull that one out.
The deep dive,
30 for 30 on the delivery crew. I'm also waiting for what I think would be a fantastic sitcom, just a sitcom based on MJ's security crew from the 90s. It'd be fantastic. You just follow around MJ's security crew from the 90s, make it a cartoon or something.
Seemed like it was so weird that they showed I forget what his name was, but like his head of security, like that became
when he was saying that he was like a father figure for him. That was really cool that they did that, because that's something I didn't know too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or most people that weren't close to Jordan probably didn't know, right?
Yeah, and I liked that, right? And then like he came back, it seemed like a movie, right? Like he wasn't there and they lost a couple of games, and then he comes back and they start winning again. Like it's like everything that's like, you're like, oh man, is this like real life right now? Because like it just seemed like totally in a movie zone or something.
And I know we quickly touched on the baseball thing, but just for a second, I want to flip it back to baseball. I think people are underestimating or deflating how much of an accomplishment it is to go to the second highest level of a professional sport that you can possibly go to and bat 202, right? Like people are saying 202 is that's not good. Let's see you go and bat 202 in AA, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's still impressive.
Insane.
Yeah, not major league player level, but this is the second highest level of baseball, and you're batting 202, stealing 30 bases, driving in 50 runs. Like. That's good. Like, that's impressive. With a year of practice, you haven't played the sport for, 11, 15, what did he say, 16 years or something? And then you come in and you bat 202 with 6 months practice. That's ridiculously good. Like, and people knock him saying he wasn't a good baseball player in that. That's impressive.
Yeah, like, it's kind of crazy. Everyone just... That's the way it is, right? The media kind of wants to see you fail and make fun of you and everything like that, right? It's kind of, you see the same narrative with LeBron, right?
And we saw... Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
And we saw actual major league experts, like coaches and managers, saying if he had a little bit more time, he would have made the majors.
Yeah. That's crazy, right? There's not a lot of people that can play two sports, right? There's
not a lot of people that can play one sport.
Yeah. Professionally, right? So the fact that you can go into two leagues, that's crazy, right?
It's absolutely insane. The other thing, obviously, that comes out of this now with everyone's interest in Jordan being piqued is all the arguments of, oh, could 56-year-old Jordan come out of retirement and beat so-and-so? To be fair, I am a strong subscriber to the fact that 2020 Michael Jordan could probably beat 2020 Dion Waiters in a game of one-on-one. But Jordan comes out and says, in response to them, that he thinks he could beat his current Hornets players, but doesn't want to crush their dreams or everything. And it's like, first off, whatever stopped you from crushing anyone's souls before?
Yeah.
Second,
I guess must be money.
It's kind of an odd thing for someone who's in charge of building a competitive team to come out and say that they could beat their team when they're 56 years old and retired. I mean, it's a strange strategy.
Is he the owner? I never got understood. Is he the owner or president?
He's partial owner, but okay. he gets final say on a lot of things because he's Michael Jordan. Yeah. When you're partial owner and you're also Michael Jordan, you get a little bit more say than the other partial owners.
That makes sense then. Because everyone's always talking about him, and I'm like, is he like the full-time owner or not? You know? That's crazy.
Let's close out with the biggest question of all, the one that everyone wants to know now. Who's your number one basketball player of all time?
Mine's always, it hasn't changed. It's been the same.
Mm-hmm.
My number one basketball player of all time is Paul Pierce. No, I'm just joking. It's Michael Jordan. It's not even close.
Yeah, it's.
I didn't need this documentary to tell me that, but it was still great to watch, just to validate everything.
For sure, and it was great to go back and see all those 90s games. And aside from the Jordan stuff, too, just all the other stuff. Like, how many people didn't know how dominant Gary Payton and Shawn Kemp were, right?
Yeah.
How many people, didn't know much about the Utah Jazz, The only thing that kind of upsets me a little bit is they didn't even make a mention of the 2 years that Jordan wasn't there. Both of those years, the Rockets won the championship. They didn't mention the Rockets once. They didn't mention Hakeem once throughout this whole thing.
Yeah, that was crazy. The only time he was mentioned is when he got drafted.
Right? And Hakeem is probably throughout this the era that we're covering in this documentary, Hakeem is very likely the second best player in basketball throughout it.
Yeah.
And he's not mentioned. And he's not mentioned at all. Yeah, and then you have Reggie Miller gets almost a whole episode to him, and the guy's, like, in my opinion, the most borderline of borderline Hall of Famers. He's basically Kevin Martin plus, like, but he made a few clutch shots, but oddly, never won a championship. How many people do you know get branded with the title of clutch and have never won a championship?
Yeah, I know, and it's funny that LeBron's won 3, and he's considered not clutch.
And has incredibly clutch shots in that, too. And another thing that's really funny that you mentioned that is we praise Jordan in this documentary for passing the ball to Paxson and for passing the ball to Steve Kerr for those last shots, yet we vilify LeBron James for passing the ball to Kyrie.
You're right. Yeah, it's insane.
It's pretty crazy. But yeah, 10 hours down, 5 weeks down, still lots more quarantine to go. So we're hoping for that bonus footage, the director's cut, something to come out to keep us busy while the quarantine's going on. But we did have The Last Dance for 5 weeks to keep us entertained and remind us of one of the eras that built basketball, one of the great eras in basketball, the Michael Jordan era that may have been cut short a little too soon. For some of us, we wish that was where it ended. Unless it got extended with the Bulls. I also don't think if they came back the next year that they would have won another championship anyway. I think they were getting a little old. I think it would have been very difficult for them to re-sign all of those pieces, and Pippen wasn't coming back. Right?
Yeah.
As never won without Pippen, and it's not just a coincidence that Jordan never won without Pippen. Sometimes you find the best fit for your team, right? And as a player, sometimes you find your best fit as your second in command or the guy to run alongside you in that, right? And Pippen and Jordan, they found each other, right? Like they were the perfect match for each other in the NBA, and because of the perfect match that they combined to make with each other, yes, Jordan was the best player alive. Yes, Jordan is the best player of all time, but he couldn't put it together and win before Scotty got there. He needed that piece, and Scotty provided that piece. So, combining to be probably the best, two-person combination, the best pair in NBA history, comes along, helps them win all those championships, builds those 90s teams, and we get this amazing thing out of it. So if he's not there, not only is this team probably not coming back and winning the next year, but that's a lot of the heart and soul of that team gone.
Yeah. And you need heart and soul. You need that clutch numero uno. You need that player that has the heart and soul of the team.
Plus,
you need that guy.
Sorry. Plus, I think Pippen was the guy who held it together. The team. Because
100%.
Because Jordan was abrasive. You talk to people now, even the people that won 3 rings with him, and they're like, yeah, I did not enjoy playing with Michael Jordan, right? And Scotty being there probably stopped a lot of players from just freaking out and being like, you know what, cut me. I can't do this.
Yeah, I'm leaving. Trade me, please.
Right?
I already got a ring. I don't need anything else. Right?
Yeah, like a super important part of that team and the glue that held the team together.
Yeah.
And even when Jordan left.
Yeah, it was... without Scotty, there is no Michael, right?
Well, there is a Michael. Without Scotty, there's no 6 rings. You can say that. I have a hard time believing Michael Jordan wouldn't have figured it out at some point along the line to win at least a few rings, right? But not 6. I don't think he wins 6 without Pippen, and I don't think he wins 7 if they come back the next year. So everyone talking about, they could have come back for a shot at 7. It would be tough. It would have been tough to see them put together a team that could have gone back.
It's better to retire and have no one being able to dethrone you than to come back and get dethroned.
Which is part of the reason what you said earlier about Tom Brady, why I think Tom Brady wouldn't retire. He doesn't want his last pass to be an interception.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And that's why LeBron, I hate to say me being a Celtics fan, but LeBron and LeBron leaving to the West is, I don't think the Celtics are ever going to be able to be that team that dethroned LeBron from the East, right? So he leaves as a champion of the East.
Yeah, the lockout really hurts him because I think this was the Lakers' year. And now next year the Warriors come back healthy. You get KD back in the league. That's a tough slate.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
We will. Any last thoughts on the last dance or Jordan in general?
No, I think I said everything that I could say. What about you?
Oh, I got lots more I could say about Jordan, but we got to keep this short. We don't have 10 hours to spend recording this. Release it in parts over 5 weeks. But that's our review of The Last Dance here on the Pure Point podcast. See, made it so far through it without tongue-tying myself once, and then right at the end, slip it up right at the end.
You least expect it, right? You pulled the Karl Malone.
Just kidding. I let Jordan take the ball from me right at the end of the game there. See, I'm like Reggie Miller. I'm clutch, but not clutch when it matters. Not in the finals. But that's it for the Pure Point podcast for this week. This is Pure Point Weekly. We'll be back with you each week, try to get you some stuff on the news that's going around in the world, of course, this time around. Really only one big news piece, The Last Dance. We could have talked about the NBA opening in Orlando. We could have talked about Sean Marion thinking he's a Hall of Famer and all that stuff, but realistically, nobody cares compared to The Last Dance right now. And this Orlando stuff's going to work itself out over the next couple weeks anyway, so we'll see where that goes. Everyone's just kind of crossing their fingers we get basketball again. Keep it locked here to find out all of our thoughts on everything NBA and basketball related. Hit like down below, subscribe to the channel, like it on Twitter, retweet it, follow us everywhere. You know the drill, you know exactly what to do, and we'll catch you next week